Module 3 is meeting our role players. Let's meet our first role player, the Money Laundering Advisory Council. The Money Laundering Advisory Council strives to bridge the gap between government and the private sector. This it does by acting as a forum in which the Financial Intelligence Centre, associations representing categories of accountable institutions, organs of state and supervisory bodies can consult one another. The role is to advise government on the policies and best practices to identify the proceeds of unlawful activities and to combat them. This it does normally through the Minister of Finance. Money laundering empowers terrorism, corruption and organised crime. For example, terrorist groups buy arms with laundered money. So the Money Laundering Advisory Council also will consult with the South African Police Service. Let's meet our first role player, the Money Laundering Advisory Council. Now this strives to bridge the gap between government and the private sector by acting as a forum in which the Financial Intelligence Centre, associations representing categories of accountable institutions, organs of state and supervisory bodies can consult one another. The role is to advise government on the policies and best practices to identify the proceeds of unlawful activities and to combat them. Money laundering empowers terrorism, corruption and organised crime. For example, terrorist groups buy arms with laundered money. So the Money Laundering Advisory Council's role is extremely important. Our next role player is the Financial Intelligence Centre. Now, the Financial Intelligence Centre was introduced to prevent criminals from abusing accountable institutions to clean the proceeds of crime. So it now has to collect, analyze, interpret the information reported to it in terms of various compulsory reporting obligations. It then uses the information to inform and advise law enforcement authorities, supervisory bodies, SARS and intelligence services. Finally, it also monitors compliance with the Financial Intelligence Centre Act and gives guidance to accountable institution and supervisory bodies. Not surprisingly, another role player is the South African Police Service. They play an integral part in combating the crimes themselves, and they also help to monitor and enforce the different acts. Not unsurprisingly, the key role players in a FSP happen to be the employees, who are the first line of defense. They are the ones that deal with the client and can see if the client is acting out of character or if they're giving suspicious answers. They will report this into the Money Laundering Reporting Officer. Now, each institution is required to have a Money Laundering Reporting Officer appointed. The Money Laundering Reporting Officer will investigate the transactions and, if needed, send a report to the Financial Intelligence Centre. There's a limited time in which to do this, and stiff penalties if the requirements are not met. We come to the end of this module now. We've looked at the role players in the money laundering environment. We've also looked at what acts we have to look at in order to understand the money laundering environment. Now we're going to go and get to know our customer.